Hey everyone, hey world, hope you're doing well on this Saturday night. Yeah, don't really party, don't do any of that anymore. So I have thought I'd jump on a live. I have a special guest coming on, a friend of mine over from the Netherlands. We're going to talk about what it means to feel centered, and what that space entitles you to do, and how you think and feel about yourself from that space. So what we can do in this space, and how this can kind of benefit us in our life and our daily life. So we're just going to go over a couple of perspectives, and just share our story and our journey towards our center, and what that entails, daily rituals, and any of these things that kind of appear and happen in our life. So we're just we're just going to go over a few things of what it means to be in that space, and what we can do to kind of get back into that space when life smashes us, because it will smash you at some point in time. So learning the tools to be able to kind of bring yourself back into your space, into your center, is the best thing we can learn to do. So I'm just waiting for Harris to jump on. Just definitely just message below if you're on the live. I'd like to see who's available and who's online watching, and we plan to chat for like 30 to 50 minutes, just on the subject. We have pretty cool perspectives that we've both been working on. All right. Hey Harris, hey man, how are ya?
Hey man, I'm
It's good. It's
excited.
good. Yeah, it's
How are
good.
you?
It's good. Good man. Good. So just going to chat today just on what it means to become into our center, and what that entails for both of us, and both of our experiences of being in alignment, and like kind of sitting in a space of like they say, our center, and what that entails, I guess, what we can do from that space as well, and how we can move back in and out of that space. I think that's very important, because life is just very testing at times. So yeah man, I definitely I'd love to introduce yourself. Anyways, crew, we got a few people on, and yeah man, definitely.
Cool. Well, first of all, thank you, and I really appreciate this opportunity to get into this topic with you. And I love how it just organically came about,
Yeah.
our communication, but then also this topic. And yeah, but me. So my name is Haris, and my what I do is supporting people with basically creating more balance and more clarity within their mental, emotional, energetic systems, and uh, creating um, or coming to alignment with a sense of purpose, and reconnecting with what we love to do the most, and how we can create a life that is a reflection of what we love the most. And yeah, so really working on different methodologies to remove, release, transform the energies that are in the way for us to really step into that space where we feel um, the confidence, and feel the um, the energy to really start expressing, being, and flowing with what wants to be created from us. And I
Mm,
do this mostly right now with one-on-one containers,
mm.
um, but also in the near future there are some group like programs that are coming up. And yeah, that's
Oh, awesome. No,
pretty
it's
much
good
it in
man.
a nutshell.
Yeah, well, I think like
Yeah.
we do the same kind of stuff in our own facet, and like we were chatting in the past, I think it's very cool how we can be from two ends of the spectrum of perspective, and still and experience, and then still be, right, kind of reverse engineering our way back into our center, and learning how to
Yeah.
then stay in us that space as well, and then teach people to do the same things. Yeah, I think it's a very amazing thing to learn. And like for myself, I was a ADHD child, nuts, running around full of energy, and so getting into my center was like the most valuable gift I was ever taught. And it was not like I was taught by anyone, but like this inner this inner kind of teaching that happened, you know, this awareness and this kind of this feeling and thinking, feeling kind of coherent, magical space that was like sat like kind of here and just in the middle of my chest, you could say, in my heart. So, and it was like a, yeah, space that would just, you know, I could create from anything from that space, and I could build so much success from that space. And that was like the most valuable thing I could ever find in my life or ever become aware of, was that
Yeah.
ability to be able to do that.
Yep. Yeah, and it's exactly what we talked about just before we got on the call, that how in these modern societies we are so distracted. And I basically, from the moment we start growing up and start looking around the adults to us, how they live life, we pretty much don't know any else, most of us anyway, than a life that is full of distraction. And so we don't even consider um, getting into our center and how to maintain our centeredness and all these things. It's really to the point where this automatic habit of not being in your center becomes so detrimental to our well-being that we start noticing, oh wait, I'm not out of my center, or whatever other terminology would resonate.
Yeah.
That we then start contemplating on a different way of being. And I'm curious, what was for you the moment where you realize, oh, there is this thing as that's called not being out of your center, and when this whole uh, centeredness became relevant for your life. And
Yeah, so
yeah.
I was, after 10 years of seeing doctors and, you know, being labeled every problem under the sun, literally being given every label and every drug that was associated with that label, to find out, you know, every single time that this wasn't the, you know, what I was searching for. This was not going to solve things. This is like a band-aid situation. It led me into doing lots of research, you know, on, you know, brainwave activity, mindset training. You know, that led into like a lot of different spiritual modalities, that led into breath work. And then it was like, it was kind of like, that was the final piece of the puzzle. When I'd found breath work, you know, and started to integrate this into my daily rituals, I started to really understand what it meant to be in my center. And then it was like, I understood how I was when I was in my center, but it was like I would not be aware of me being out of my center for quite a period of time, even though I was training to be in my center. It was like it was a couple of profound, it's just like you just have such clarity and understanding. And you're like, wow, okay, this is the space I'm moving back and forth from. And, you know, every time I met with resistance in my environment, I was still reacting and responding in the same old ways, which would, you know, take me further away from my center. And it was kind of like a practicing of, you know, moving back in and out of this space that continued to then, you know, like you say, you build the patterns and to kind of calcify the new way of being. And that was, I felt like as soon as I become aware of it, it was like, I was like, wow, this is what I've been searching for my whole life. This is the healing I've been searching for within myself. And it was like, I needed to learn how to do this more. So it was like, I needed to apply this structure every day and you know, implement actions into my day every day from as soon as I woke up, to bring more awareness to this pattern so that I could continue to, you know, play the pattern out over and over again and like kind of strengthen that pattern. So yeah, it was definitely, the search started definitely after being, you know, mistrialed with many drugs from the medical industry in Australia. And, you know, because I was always quite open to questioning why I felt certain ways and why I was thinking a certain way, and I was not sure why. And I felt like it was, you know, yeah, the meditation and the breath work was like the key element, you know, because I'd done so much. I'm a very logical person and very intellectual, you could say. And I found that as soon as I kind of got out of my head and I started to work with the breath, I started to really notice that space a lot more. And it gave me a lot more support, you know, and I noticed the magic coming from that space. It's like, you know, unlimited information, you know, access to, you know, divine intervention at, you know, at will, you know, I just ask for support and it happens, you know, like it was kind of a space where I was not causing resistance. I was just open to, you know, to being of service as well as being of help. asking for help and support as well. So yeah, it was a very powerful space, man. And I'd like to know as well for yourself, when did you start to realize that, you know, the power of this space you have?
Well, it was very it's very easy. Basically, the suffering became too great. I was in my early 20s, dealing with like major anxiety issues, like to the point of panic attacks and hyperventilation on a very consistent basis. And,
Mm.
you know, it was very clear that I wasn't able to do my studies well. I felt so stuck in within myself, just really didn't feel motivated, inspired to do um, yeah, to do almost anything. So it was a clear sign that some change needed to happen, and that was when I first started to being introduced to meditation. Um, Before that, I was very skeptic to anything that could be potentially be linked to anything spiritual or holistic or you know, I was like, yeah, I remember my therapist at the time saying, you know, meditation could help. And I remember thinking like, what the F? Like, you gotta be kidding. I'm having some major issues. And you're gonna tell me that just me sitting still and focusing on my breath will do it? I'm like, you clearly have no clue what I'm going through. Um, but this isn't, by the way, to say that meditation will help for everyone in every type of, you know, mental struggle or illness. But just saying that there was so much more potential of meditation, which, by the way, I only come to fully realize years later. Like it in the moment, I cannot say I was really centered. It was just helping me to take these panic attacks under control and just get my
Mm.
breathing more stable. But it was years later when I quote unquote started to spiritually seeking that I came across spiritual teachers and meditation methodologies that yeah, that really got me to a place where I was able to see beyond these mind structures and really
Mm.
uh, become more stable in recognizing this sense of presence, this sense of pure being. And I feel this is maybe a nice point to get into because you also just mentioned space and
Mm.
center, and maybe
Yeah.
it could be nice also for those who are maybe not that familiar with these terminologies, like what do we really mean by when we
Yeah.
say being in our own space, being in center, like what is that?
Yeah.
um
I feel like that space could be best described as just like, you know, when you're not in your head, you know, you just wake up and everything, you just feel it, everything's flowing and you feel, you know, you feel content and you're not having to be anywhere or chase anything. And it's like a kind of a space of like where you're just not in thought really. And you're just, you know, feeling like you're just completely content with being present. You know, I think everyone's experienced being present. um, and if everyone was to like reflect on that for a moment, what presence is and being completely present, they could all reflect to a single moment at some point in time that they've experienced that space. And, you know, like, I feel like, yeah, being in your center and like being present, completely present is, yeah, the best described is that just like a space that's out of thought where you're not in thought. You're not kind of,
um,
you're not in that analytical mind, you know, that's scanning the environment, trying to, you know, label everything and give everything meaning for the purposes of, say, fight or flight response. I feel like
mm,
when you move into your center, you're not in a space of needing to, you're not in a fight or flight response. You're not analyzing your environment. You're more so coming from a space where it's from an inward outward space, I guess. So it's hard to explain because it's a magical feeling and experience you kind of go through.
yeah.
And like when you start to kind of integrate it into your life every day, it becomes more, obviously, you know, like anything, you train a muscle, it grows. And, you know, moving back and forth in and out of this space can get easier. But yeah, I feel like the best way I could explain would be just for myself, in my experience, was being able to escape my thoughts, not escape, but not be entertaining thoughts that weren't even running in my mind. My analytical mind was like, it was on pause, like I paused a button on a DVD player, and everything could just stop completely.
Yeah.
I feel like that'd be the only way I could explain it. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
How about
Yep.
yourself?
Well, first I want to say I really I resonate with what you're saying, and I was contemplating the other day about addiction, like what are the mechanics of addiction, what is that really, and seeing that in a way we all are addicted to greater lesser extent, and obviously there are ways that are could be more addictions that could be more harmful than others,
Mm,
but in essence, what I feel the greatest addiction in general for humans is thinking,
mm,
like because and maybe but this is an open discussion, I guess. It's just a contemplation that because of going in our mind, because aka stepping out of our center and going into all kind of random thoughts, um a lot of times negative thoughts, right, which put our state in a more contracted, tensed, stressed energy, is then the result of us looking for whatever, work, alcohol, drugs,
mm,
um, other things to not feel that contraction, to not feel that stress. Like
mm,
so, arguably, the greatest addiction is thinking, right? Because
mm,
when we're not in that, when we're not identifying with all these thought streams, and um, we can recognize this sense of presence, this sense of beingness, and uh, abide in there, um, then that's greatly fulfilling, and gives so much peace and calmness in our energy centers, in our heart, we can say. For me, also, centeredness is related to being in the heart,
mm.
um, being in being in our heart space. And because what I noticed for me is that when I got to this space of detachment from my thoughts, and maybe we can go into a moment like how to do that,
Mm.
then there's a very natural compassion and love, and just seeing everything from a more positive, loving perspective.
Mm.
So so yeah, and also humility comes to mind. Humility comes to mind because when we're too insistent on holding on to certain points of view and we're not willing to surrender them, then it becomes very, very difficult to get centered, really, because
Mm.
centeredness requires, from my understanding, requires the willingness to surrender our points of view,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
those obviously they come from the mind. We're like, no, yeah,
Mm.
but I really see it this way. This is the truth, and I will prove it. And we get all self-righteous about this. Then
Yeah.
that's the arrogant mind. So that can be a challenge, and we
Mm.
all have this. I'm not. I'm literally talking about myself, and
Mm.
um, we all have those moments where and it's not even like, when I say arrogant mind, it's not even always being negative about other things out there. Is also just thinking small of ourselves. That's maybe
Yeah.
one of the most common ones, just thinking so small, and just not just being afraid to not do that, to stop doing that, to release those thoughts that we're not inadequate, that we're not unworthy, that we're not
Mm.
incapable, whatever, these type of thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I feel like our thinking is it can be our best friend. When it's working for you. When we think, technically it's working for us because it's feeding the story we want it to feed at the time. But Yeah, that was been like I had a lot of negative thinking in my past, and it used to my imagination would just run with it as well, and build some serious scenarios and stories out of the experiences. It was nuts. It was crazy, and I think it was like the time when I stopped playing out those parts as well. Um, was a great um, that brought a lot of more awareness to the patterns of my thinking, and that's why I went into teaching Ho'oponopono as well, which is a Hawaiian spiritual healing technique, and I just really resonated with it because it was so simple, and that the new self identity Ho'oponopono didn't require anything outside of you to deal with anything. It was kind of an awareness, process that you go through, and purging of the data of the mind, as you could say, and cleaning of all of this information. So, like Dr. Hugh Len would say, is cleaning to get, just keep cleaning and cleaning until you're at a space of zero, which has inspired me and inspired the company as well, because I felt like that was my biggest issue was my thoughts were just so rapidly moving at pace through my mind. I feel like a lot of people would relate to this, and at periods of time, it would just accelerate and accelerate, and trying to get into your center from that space was like it was never gonna happen. It was like nuts. It was crazy. It was just like so much going on, and then your feeling state of being just follows suit, and just like starts to feed all of the emotions that kind of it's profiled that stimulate that same story or thought process. And by the end of it all, you're just like worn out, drained, and it's all just been going on within inside of you. It's got nothing going on. There's nothing even actually happening outside in your environment. It's like that's created all of this trauma that within yourself. And I feel like for years I was like self-inflicting trauma on myself. So which led me to wanting to do so much research into this field, and it was like, I was just intuitively guided to each of it. But Ho'oponopono was amazing. It just helped me clean the data of the mind, and to help me clear old outdated states of thinking and being, and that taught me a lot about my feeling state of being. I didn't realize because I did feel a lot when I was growing up. I wasn't sure I was feeling, or I was or I wasn't. It was like a confused state for me, I guess, being through my own life and my experience. Yeah, it was to feel was classed as being a bit of weak as well. It's a bit of a weakness kind of situation in that kind of the world I was in. And so yeah, finding my center and cleaning the data of my mind was like the best thing I've ever found, and it was an amazing process. I feel like
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
Just
Yeah.
did you have to deal with a lot of patterns of thinking? Do you still have them now? Like I still have patterns come in. It's got less though. Obviously and the faster now I'm like more aware of it, I kind of can squash certain thoughts, or I mean I more so not squash, I heal them. I move through them, and
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah, for sure. It happens still. It happens much less, like mm, rarely compared to before. And when it happens, the moments where those mind ramps really seem to impact my state of being are much shorter because I have the
yeah.
tools and the awareness to recenter that,
Mm,
recalibrate myself into my center, if you will. There's something you just said that was so felt so resonant. Right, you mentioned the mind working for us, and I love that because what I'm seeing a lot in these communities, in these conscious spiritual communities as well, is this idea of eradicating the mind, of not being the mind. And I feel we'll always be the mind, we'll always have the mind, that we're supposed to have the mind.
yeah.
And recently I actually posted, I quoted a teacher, Joshua. These are it's a book. I got it from a book where it's some teachings about from Jesus. And
Mm,
there was one quote, and maybe I'm quoting it not exactly in the way, but something along the lines of um, that when we are surrendered, when the heart is awakened, um, then the mind becomes the servant of our being or of the heart, something like that. I can look it up later, but I really
Yeah,
love
yeah.
that because it just shows that it's not about finding your mind or changing your mind. It's recentering yourself into a state of being, into a state of heart, if you will.
Mm,
Um, and then the mind works for you. Then um, you're in a different frequency where where you're perceiving thoughts that are actually in service of your quote unquote your true self, of your
mm,
higher potential. And it just makes the whole journey so much easier, because I was
yeah.
also very confused for a long time, like, oh my god, all these thoughts, how will I ever get rid of them? It seems impossible, and they're so overwhelming, and they seem to have such a strong force to them. um, and then just, meditating on them and just watching horrifying thoughts for moments on moment doesn't seem to really do anything. And that's really the reason why I set up the work that I did once I started to realize how direct and really easy it can be. Like, technically, methodologically speaking, it's quite
Mm,
easy. Now, of
mm,
course, it requires some consistency and some guidance to really get that integrated.
mm.
But in essence, it's um, can be quite easy. So I'm really passionate and excited to bring that forth to others who are feeling that calling.
Yeah, well, I feel like
Was that an answer to your question, by the way? I forgot your
yeah,
question now. I'm not sure
yeah,
if I
yeah. No,
answered
no.
it.
I kind of lost. I got lost in your story as well, so that's fine. I mean, that's the whole fun of it. I think just going off on the on the rabbit holes and seeing this and that. But look, I started to learn that the mind was always working for me. Like even if it was negative thinking that was appearing, it was showing me what I don't want to entertain anyway. So it was like,
Hmm.
regardless of the polarity that was appearing at the point in time, it gave me support anyway because it showed me what I don't want to be or don't want to entertain anymore. And like anything, when you don't feed it, it will decalcify and it won't strengthen, right? It will just only whatever you choose to feed will kind of grow, right? Like where they say is where energy goes, or where your intention goes, energy flows, is so true.
Yeah.
So um yeah, I think the whole idea of me, where I started to transcend my old self, excuse me, was when I was able to accept and surrender, like you say, but accept all polarities of myself, all aspects of myself, accept all of the thoughts that come in, whether they were mine or collective, didn't matter. I just took accountability for all of it. And that really transcended my life. That gave me a lot of like drive. That also, like you said, opened me up to move into a space of being me, being in my heart, so I could be more, in a space of compassion and faith, and then in service to some other support like a higher power. And that kind of gave me a lot of you know because I could feel there was something around. There's some support here, and there was support. I didn't need anything outside of me, and it was like I felt like that was the biggest thing. As soon as I found my center and slowed down, I wasn't searching for anything externally to kind of validate my self-love, self-worth, who I was. It didn't matter what people thought about me or cared about me. It was all irrelevant. Like it was just their own version of reality, right? So it
Yeah.
was like I was so totally accepting. It was like, no, it's cool. You just could hate my guts for all I care. It doesn't matter. It's all good. That's just it's water under the bridge. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I felt like I'm kind of on a rabbit hole now. I've gone a bit on a tangent, but I got excited. You kind of linked me into something and went off on the run. But yeah, it's coming back to your center was like like Andy just said in the chat. Andy said how when you learn how to feel instead of thinking, then you'll start to learn how to control the mind. It's so true.
Nice.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, you're not here to eradicate the mind and just never have a thought come in. I mean, that defeats all the creativity, because I get a thousand thoughts that I'm become aware of every day that are really creative and that inspire to me to build a new book or something for my clients, or you know, change something up here or get creative on a reel or a post. Or so I mean, thoughts, like, they're not against you, I feel, but
Yeah.
they're like, I like, so I think when I shifted the idea that the thoughts were not against me and that thoughts were just there for me to decide what it is I want to entertain,
Yeah.
that was a big, that helped me escape just being in
I
thought.
Yeah, and I really appreciate what's the name? Andy's comment here.
Andrew,
I think
yeah,
it's
he's a good friend. He's a good
and
bloke.
it's really it's worth just stepping a bit more into it, because I feel especially for us men, and of course this is generalizing, and I know for myself it was very hard, and still at the moment it is. There is some resistance to start feeling, like especially in moments when shit hits the fan and there's some uh, thing happening that's triggering me, that is maybe a challenge. Then I notice still this very automatic response to just go into my head,
Mm.
and we can't really resolve all energies, most energies perhaps, like really to the core by just with our mind and from our mind and go beyond mind. Like I do feel we there needs to be this, at least the willingness and the ability, the openness within us to tap into our emotions, and
Mm.
also of course not to linger and be like all about emotion, like identifying and then just,
Mm.
you know, believing you are the emotion, what the emotion is suggesting is absolutely true. So we do want to do that with an awareness, but
Mm.
definitely allow it, definitely be present to the emotion, really notice it, where in our bodies do we feel it, and so that that energy can move.
Mm.
um, so yeah, it's a nice nuance, Andrew. It's a nice uh, yeah, just the balancing aspect to what it means to be in center. It's not about like staying in one space and just kind of ignoring everything else. Of course we do want to ignore our thoughts most of the time as
Mm.
we go through our everyday life, but when stuff does happen and we do, some emotions do get activated, I do, you know, we do need to look at them and just feel them.
Mm.
um yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely got to own them, man. Like, otherwise it's just energy left in the body, right? And it's just like
Yep.
lingering, waiting for the next energetic imprint to trigger it, and for us to now have some problem or issue or circumstance arrive in our life. And yeah, so like that's why I loved Ho'oponopono. And then I, like, in my trainings I teach this Ho'oponopono applied with breath work, and you know, that like
So can you
cleaning the,
maybe tell? Sorry to interrupt, but
yeah,
you just mentioned earlier, and I forgot it. Now you're saying it. And the Ho'oponopono, like
yeah,
I've heard about it, and I'm sure many people don't know about it, or maybe even if they heard, they don't know exactly. So maybe can you speak on what Ho'oponopono does
yeah.
to getting into our center?
Yeah, so it's mainly focused initially on the mind, and then on the breath as well. So it's a healing modality. It's such a simple 4-step process, and why I resonated with it so much is because as much as I love complexity, I know that things are simple in life, realistically, and as much as I love complex kind of things, I get enjoyment out of diving into it. When it comes to healing, I think it's always about just making stuff very simple. And I felt that Ho'oponopono really resonated with me. When I heard the story about Dr. Hugh Len, who had, he was a doctor, a psychologist and therapist, in, you know, full on mental health wards, and, you know, of the criminally insane. And he, the story was, anyway, there was this hospital in Hawaii State Hospital, and the hospital had constantly had energetic issues, and it was like staff weren't staying, people were getting hurt at the hospital from all of these, the criminals, and the, you know, the mentality was very negative there, the energy was very dense. Doctors wouldn't last a week, they would leave, they couldn't handle the job. They finally mentioned, you know, reached out to Dr. Hugh Len, and Dr. Hugh Len was like the recreator of the old traditional way of Ho'oponopono, which was about saying, having a facilitator and then the two people who have the issues, and they come together and they talk it out. Whereas Dr. Hugh Len kind of evolved that into self-identity Ho'oponopono, which is more about you don't need anything outside of you externally. It's about total acceptance. It's like, what is going on within inside of me that I'm experiencing this within my reality? What is my taking full responsibility is like, why is this going on in my reality? Why am I experiencing it? What connection do I have to it? So he used this process where he went in, there was probably 30 in this specific ward. He's like, yeah, sure, I'll take the job. But I'm going to be doing my own style of psychology or my own therapy techniques. They're like, sure, look, no one else lasts. You come in, do whatever you want. Sort of, if you can change things, great. So what he did for 3 months was he would go into this office room. He wouldn't associate or talk to any of the inmates or the criminals that were in this mental health ward. He wouldn't talk to any of them. He wouldn't visually see them like in person. He would just go into this room, and for the 8 hours a day, he would just read all of their files. What he would do is then he would read all these files, and he would become aware of what was coming up within him, any ill thoughts, any, ill feelings, or any of this stuff. Whatever would come up within him, he would take full responsibility for, and he would use the Ho'oponopono technique. So it would be a simple phrase. It's like, I'm sorry for, I'm sorry for causing separation. I'm sorry for, this disconnect in society. I'm sorry for, not seeing the love and light in this person. And the next step would be, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Please forgive me for causing this separation and causing all this discord. And the next step would be, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you. I thank you and appreciate you for offering and showing me the separation I'm causing, and that I don't see this person as the love and light that they are naturally, beyond circumstance, beyond situation. And then it was like the magic elixir. Elixir was like, I love you, setting it free energetically, giving it love, and actually having a thinking, feeling coherence where you're like, I'm saying it and I'm feeling that simultaneously. And it was like this powerful kind of potion, which is pretty much thinking and feeling coherence, like Dr. Joe Dispenza speaks of on a scientific level. So I loved Ho'oponopono. And anyway, the story was, by the end of the 3 months, he would come into he didn't see any of them at all. And he would come into the ward, and he just started to notice the energy lift, and inmates started to wean off heavy medications. Inmates who were never going to see the day of light again were getting released. They were rehabilitated, and they were healing. And this was nothing to do with energy, to do with, say, physically having to do anything, but that he was in a thinking, feeling, coherent space where he took 100% accountability for his reality, his connection to it. And it's really, physics. Yeah, it's physics, man. Yeah, it was amazing. So it was a really powerful technique. And so, for me getting into my center, I was like, all right, cool, because I had a big heart. I wanted to help humanity, but for me to do that first, I needed to kind of give myself the love, give myself whatever it is required of me so that I can move into a deeper space of being able to give from a cup that's not just dried and that's not just empty, So yeah, Ho'oponopono really helped with me clearing any of the information and data in my mind that I'd built over, say, the last 20 years of my life, of the poisonous thinking styles and patterns and behaviors that were associated with them. And, all the story building that my imagination was building based off of that energy, So the Ho'oponopono helped me really get to a space of, like I like to say now, is a space of zero within myself, where I don't have thoughts come in. I choose to think now, you could say. I don't have, if anything's coming in, it's like, it's intuition. It's a knowing. It's like a knowing. And then the label comes after that. It's like, I know what I need to do. And then information that comes to feed that knowing. So yeah, it was a powerful technique, the Ho'oponopono. I feel like it's one of the most magical, old, ancient, traditional healing modalities that I've on earth. It's one of them anyway. And Dr. Hugh Len made it very simple and made it very you know, it's more of a thing because he's like, imagine if there was more people around the world that are all just taking full responsibility for the reality. People wouldn't even be able to
Yeah.
be in any other state but bliss, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Which is
regardless
our
of,
natural state.
yeah.
It's
So
our nature. Yeah.
yeah, so it was like and it helped me as well because um, I had a bit of victim mentality, more so poor for myself, because I wasn't sure of why I was like I was or why I was in this situation, or, you know, so it helped me hold myself accountable and responsible. And that was like the most powerful thing I could have learned because that gave me the space to be able to change shit, you know, and like to alter my reality and to shift whatever it was, to shift my perception, my feelings, or, you know, if they're not, you know, not that pushing them away, but I'm like, you know, there's, like you say, the emotional body's great, and it gives me so much indication of what is right and wrong for myself with that moment in time. Say, based on, but not to linger in the emotion as well, and become completely submersive in it and immersed in the emotion, and it's vice versa with the thinking. And I feel like that is pretty much a space of, you know, being in your center, is where you're not in one aspect or the another. You're just in like a space of equilibrium and like coherence and like flow state, like they say. And like the sages and the mages and of all of the ages on earth have been speaking of this space for so long. We just like building more ways of, you know, expressing it and speaking it and communicating it. And yeah, it's a magical space, man. I feel like, you know, it's really all that matters is coming into this space, technically, and
Coming
everything else
into
is a
the
bonus.
space.
Hey,
Yeah. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah.
I
So
love that. It's all just coming into the space. Get into the space.
get
Yeah.
into the space. You know, there's no other space
Oh
out there.
man. That's so powerful and so profound. The responsibility is definitely key, man.
Mm,
And this Ho'oponopono technique to really get into our heart. I have heard of this, but in the way that I apply it, I have my own version. But in essence and
yeah.
energy, it comes down to the same thing.
Mm,
I do feel it's really important when we apply these techniques to really feel it, like not just saying the words,
yeah.
but really feeling it. Like, because only then we can actually shift the energy.
Mm,
And especially, I love that I got goosebumps when you said um, something along the lines of how can I see this person in love, light, energy, something
mm.
like this. And
Yeah, yeah.
what then came to me, it's the concept of putting on creator's glasses,
Mm,
like seeing things the way God sees them.
yeah, yeah.
And that for me also what means alignment, and what being in our center allows us more easily to do is to really see things for how they really are, as opposed to
Mm,
our labels and judgments and
yeah.
biased, conditioned way of
Mm,
perceiving reality.
yep.
Is to see is to see things as God sees them, as
Yeah.
love sees them. Like I know a lot of people have this apply this question: what would love do, or how does love sees this person or this
Mm,
situation? For me, that really connects to the same essence as what you just described with
yeah.
Ho'oponopono.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, that's so profound. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's like that like I literally had my awakening probably 8 years ago where I had awareness around like, oh, I can change, or I can use knowledge to do that. um,
Yeah.
was very cool, and he was like the first person. Yeah, I was mind blown by him. I even I actually I seen all of his content and what he was teaching before he got connected with Joe Vitale. Dr. Joe Vitale, who was on the law of, oh, sorry, the secret, about
Okay.
the law of, law of attraction and all of those kind of elements. And then, yeah, Dr. Joe Vitale's just been pumping it ever since, you know, it's like one of the most profound techniques of healing, you know, and like that whole medical wards now shut down to this day. It doesn't hold anyone in it. You know, like,
Wow.
it's amazing the energy that he done, and he didn't do anything. And it's like, he didn't, like he says, he doesn't, he's past this now. He's passed now. He passed a couple of years ago now. But like he said, he goes, I don't do any healings, you know, I just take responsibility for what I'm seeing through my lenses. And like you say, he just sees love in everything, like looks through the creator's eyes. What would they see? Well, they would see nothing but
Yeah.
purification, just a, you know, world of polarities and choices, um, to kind of be better.
Yeah.
And which other part, like, you know, like I do a lot of work on the law of one too, and the Ra contact, and it's always about the choice, you know, am I being of service, or is it of service to myself? So, you know, like, say, you know, say there's a wallet on the ground, and do I take all the money out of it? No one will ever know.
Yeah.
No one ever will know, but I will know. But so, you know, it's like, comes down to the choice. Every moment in time is like an opportunity to choose either or path, you know, like, service to myself or service to others. What is it?
Yeah.
What's the choice, you know?
Well, but to be able to see that, it really like, you have to be willing to take responsibility. What you mentioned before, like, it
Mm.
really like, as long as we're not willing to take responsibility, we're not going to see or actually have a choice, or
Yeah,
even
yeah,
have
yeah.
a choice.
No.
And it can be overwhelming to realize that, wow, like, every single moment I'm actually choosing, whether I'm seeing it or I am making a choice. Now we can say it's subconscious choice, unconscious choice, but nevertheless there is something in us that's allowing it. And even when we feel bad and we feel like it wasn't our choice, which oftentimes really isn't, like, it's not a conscious choice, it
Mm.
is then a choice to how we approach what we do, how we are being with our negative emotions and so forth. And I also relate to the victim mindset, and I feel every one of us has their own portion of victim mentality. I think just it's part of being human.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, so so yeah, that can be a tough cookie at times,
Mm.
to really to see beyond that illusion, to really to acknowledge that, to identify, to even see it as that, like, to go, okay, well, I'm actually not looking at reality. I'm just being in my victim mindset and looking from the victim mindset perspective. Like, to even do that, it can be really hard.
It's like a
Oops.
kaleidoscope, or what they say, the glasses with a million different lenses, and it's forever
Right.
like kind of changing, moving, and all. It's like on and off, going on and off and on and off. It's, you know,
Yep.
you're just, your perception's just forever just altering. You're like, with choice, you know, what do I just do here? Like, that's why, that, yeah, coming into your center is the best base, because, you know, that's like the analytical mind's best job. It does. It just assesses its environment and gives everything meaning. So it's like, for the purpose of fight or flight, like, you know, is that light going to injure me? No, it's a light. You know, I understand what a light is. You know, it could injure me, you know, if I touch a live bulb, you know, because it's an electrical source. But, you know, the mind's always just like profiling for, it's always like working for you, you know, technically. But it can, like you say, it can be detrimental. And, you know, anyone I've ever like kind of studied, like, who's been of some success in their life, in their chosen, like, I do a lot of research on, you know, sports players like NBA stars, Kobe Bryant, and you know, the mindset and their whole perspective on life was, whether they were aware of it or not, they a lot of the time they were in their center, whether it was just
Mm,
unconscious or
right.
not. Like, for, you know, like, you know, when you play, like, when I used to go surfing, and some days I would just be in flow surfing, and it was only until retrospect, or like in reflection, I would understand that I was like flowing. That's why I was just had the best session surfing. It was just like
Yeah.
magic, perfect flowing, you know, cutbacks, and just flow and perfect waves, and position
Yeah.
myself in the perfect spot. It was like, it was just like a space of being in my center, really, in my
Yeah.
unawareness during the moment. So yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, I've lost the tangent a bit here, man. Sorry. But yeah,
No,
like, I
no,
feel
maybe
like,
I'll come up.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
yeah, I feel like it was like, you know, everyone's experienced coherence, or like thinking, feeling coherence, or like being in that space once in their life. And it's like you only need to identify it once and then just go and find any information that kind of supports you moving back towards that space.
Yep.
And then, but learning also to like move in and out of the analytical mind and like the processing of it all, and like you say,
Yeah.
into your space of feelings, so you can feel into that as well, to kind of create the feeling pattern that associates with that thinking space.
And we all know centeredness. Like it's not about creating something that's not there. It's inherent in what we are. And I love the example of sports players. That's one example of how. I'm not saying obviously there are. I'm assuming there are sports players who are also on path of self-realization and
Mm.
living consciously. Um, but most people, everyone knows moments of feeling really centered, like really clear and really like open and available to how life is and not being distracted by thoughts and sensations, all that. Like for example, painters or other artists, when they're in the flow and they're just painting, they're being very much in their center. They're being in this uh, uh, state of allowing source, as law of attraction teachings um, would articulate that. And obviously everyone has their own version or their own moments when they've experienced that. I suppose what we're promoting here uh, and claiming here is to make that not just something that we just unconsciously just
Mm.
tap into, but to actually live from that way, like to make that the new default way of being,
Yeah.
the new normal. Yeah.
Yeah. No, 100%, dude. I feel like that's like, that is where we all, like, the world's moving towards. You could see, like, you see it in the coaching space now. Like, I've seen coaches who were like starting off, they were like just a normal life coach, business coach. Now they're like fully moving into like just being, teaching centeredness and like moving into
Oh,
that
cool.
space. And it's cool to watch that as well. And like that was, inspired me as well to actually go online and start to do this whole journey online. And yeah, I think it's been amazing to see. I feel like, yeah, like you say, it needs to be taught to become the default.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it's got to become more of a conscious kind of choice or awareness, more awareness around being in your center and how to move back and forth from there when you kind of,
Yeah.
life throws you a curveball and sends you on the dirt track on the side of the road for a little bit bumpy ride, being able to kind of navigate back into,
Yeah.
some
It
flowing
really
consciousness.
shows what's how our values are shifting as well, just for
Mm.
us humans. What's the most important thing in life? I think that's my observation. I also feel it within myself and in my direct communities around me that we're starting to realize more and more what's really important, like what's the source of our fulfillment. And we're seeing more and more that if we're not centered, we're we're what's the word? Inevitably going to be in this loop of just chasing experiences and not feeling and just being in this game of thinking what we search is out there, what will fulfill
Mm.
us is out there. It's after this experience, after getting that, and there's no end to it. At some point we get tired and
Yeah.
we start to notice there's an emptiness to the world of things, and it's got to be somewhere else. It's got to
Yeah,
be in
exactly.
that space. It's in the space. It's
Yeah, it's in the space.
in that
That's where it
location.
is.
This mysterious space. Yeah,
But
yeah,
it is, it's a magical space, like, to be in. And yeah, I feel like it's, like you say, the world, we're moving into that space more predominantly, on an evolutionary perspective or view as well. Like the world's not, everyone's kind of waking up. They're not really, they're over seeking external, validation, external success, like, that was the most profound and probably will be, say if I get to my deathbed and I do a reflection on my life when I do get there, which I will, um, that'll be my number one most highly achieved experience, was to have that awareness and experience being in my center and being able to move back and forth into that space when required, and when life does get a bit hectic and you forget your who you are again. It's all this like a big reel of forgetting, isn't it? Over and over again, you just constantly keep forgetting, and then you're like, oh wait, oh, I'm everything. That's right, I'm God, I'm creator, I'm universal love and light. Sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, forgot Ty.
It's so funny you're mentioning this because I do that as well. Like every time when I notice myself getting lost in just stuff and the things I'm doing and getting attachments to outcome, and I notice the stress and my body responding with tension, I go like, wait, what's the most important thing? Like, what if I be on my deathbed? Like, how do I want to remember my life? Yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I did all those things, I achieved that, and I was all stressed out, or
Mm.
I just enjoyed the f out of myself,
Yeah.
out of my life, and I had a
Yeah.
great time. It
Yeah. And I
yeah.
experienced heaps of different like versions of myself, and different styles of my thinking and how I felt about myself. Like I had all this experience of that, and I feel like like in my reflection, when I'm in that space, I'm going to be quite content with where I'm at, or where I'm already at right now as well. Even though I've got other stuff I want to do and achieve, it's not like if I achieve it, great. If I don't, great. It doesn't matter. I had to go, and it's like there's no. That's kind of the space as well of not being like attached to one outcome, which you know leaves the universe in the steering the ship for you as well, always leading you to more. When you depending on your action as well, like a lot of the time our action that we put in our efforts is teaching us so many valuable lessons. And like you say, when you're coming from a space of coherence and you're in the center, everything you experience is amazing. It really is amazing. The darkness, the light, like it's all integrated, and it's all supportive for larger purposes and for your own, say, personal evolutionary process. And yeah, it's just a magical space, and I don't think you get. It was the most profound thing for me to be able to slow down my mind, after being told, like I got hooked up to an EEG machine and told my brainwaves, I was literally living in high beta brainwaves 24/7, which was crazy. And it was, yeah, it was such a, that's like, that's a very stressful place for my body to live in. If my mind's like dictating so much thinking and, racing that fast all the time, that, can't be that good. My body won't last that long. No, my mind's quite powerful. If I don't slow this down and get on top of this, and just bring myself down and into my space, into my center, yeah, you're going to lose, you're going to lose this opportunity at life, right? And it's kind of like, oh.
Mm,
So that was a major part of me finding my center. I feel like
yeah.
it's the most profound thing I've ever learned. And I'm not, you're never 100% at anything. We're just refining the version we're becoming. We're getting better at being whatever we choose to be. Whether that's being angry all the time, or or being better at just being a better human for myself, being better at being um loving towards my peers and my friends. So whatever that is, it's just a process of refinement, right? It's just getting better at refining the art of becoming that, more, yeah, just more refined is probably the best word.
Yeah. Yeah, what I would say, more conscious of that, more in a conscious recognition of that space, of that beingness, and what could maybe be a nice. Mm, I feel like we can come to an end soonish, and what could be
Yeah.
a nice pointer to anyone watching is like, we, of course, for the purpose of explaining, uh, we speak of it as like me moving into a space, me being in the center. But when I really look and feel the center, it's not like there's two. It's not like me and that what we call center or space is not separate.
No.
It's one. Like it's the recognition of the true self. It's what I am.
Yeah.
And from that perspective, we can see we're always in our center. In essence, in truth, we are the center. Because everything we're aware of happens from there, happens after that. Like first, you know, some great spiritual teachers talk about this idea of you have to be first before you can be aware of an appearance. And so we are all in our center, but we're not seeing it, we're not conscious of it because we're so conditioned to be so engaged with all the appearances, with all the sensations, perceptions, the world out there, other people and their opinions and what they will say and what they won't say and what's on the news. So we're not conscious of, we're not recognizing what's there before, what is it that allows us to even experience that. And so it's like returning back our focus, our attention, and grounding that in that space of just being.
Awesome. Love that.
Yeah. Cool. How should we
should we ask some people
complete? Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I would love to. If there are some questions or shares. Yeah. So maybe just your own experiences, guys, or maybe if there's something that we haven't covered around this topic that you feel is valuable, is worth sharing, then feel free. And obviously you can also do this after the live. You're watching the recording, that we can get back to that on a later moment.
Yeah, it's cool. I think like you say, it's always about moving into that space. Like we are always just being. It's always the mind that's like a cool little trickster. Like tries to take you out of that essence of who you are, you know, as a person. Like that true essence of who you are naturally at the base of everything, beyond story, beyond circumstances or situations. Has anyone got a message, or has anyone got something they'd like to cover in this, or the perspective? I'd love to hear for sure what you guys have to, what you think about it. You know, what's being in your center mean to you as well.
Yeah, and until we're waiting for responses or questions, what can be nice as a practice, something to that can help us to become more conscious of that centeredness, of that space we're already in, but mostly not aware of. And even if we're aware of, we can continue. We can always expand that. We can, as you said, Ty. What words did you use? Like refine that. We can refine that space. It's a very easy way. Like whenever you're aware of something, maybe it's something that triggers you or that just feels overwhelming, or if you just feel excited to practice, like whatever you're noticing, then open the question, who or what is aware of this? Or you can say, who or what knows this experience, whatever your experience is. Maybe it's something that really happens in the physical world. Maybe it's just, you know, you're aware of some thoughts and sensations. Who or what knows this? And then the key is not to look for a mental answer, like don't look for an answer, but it's just to stay with that question. Let that question itself guide you to that space. But don't look for a space as an object. So don't look for another thing. Don't look for another experience, but just stay with the question and just stay open. And this brings also the sense of surrendering. Just focusing on, what is it that knows this? Where is what's that awareness? What's that, uh, yeah, like what is that intelligence that is aware, that knows this experience, whatever that experience is, and then just staying with that sort of background, um, backgroundness, instead of going after the thing,
Yeah, yeah.
because that can be so compelling. That can, it can be so seductive to really go and engage and explore the things. And sometimes it's fun. It's not about not doing that, but
Mm,
for the purpose of centering ourselves,
yeah.
we want to stay detached. We want to stay disengaged. So
Mm.
this is a way that can sort of ignite that recognition.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like meditation is like, you know, without all the dogma around it, is a brilliant way of doing it. You know, is bringing us, slowing down, like say on a scientific level, bringing, you know, slowing brainwave activity down, moving into a more alpha brainwave state, which is, you know, like say the portal between the conscious and subconscious, so that we can start to leak in ideas into the subconscious, which, you know, is all things really, that 90% that they've classified. Um, you know, and I feel like, you know, like it's all relevant. That's why I love science. As well, I love Dr. Joe Dispenza and all of his work. You know, he like bridges science with metaphysics, and, you know, brings the quantum reality into effect, and like meets spirituality right in the center of consciousness. You know, it's amazing work, you know, and it's like his evolutionary work is like gonna shift a lot of those people's minds, you know, where science doesn't need to be, you know, constantly proved. It's like, you know,
Hmm.
spirituality comes from a space of just faith, you know, and acceptance and surrender, like you say. And yeah, the blend of both of those was like, it's very cool. That there was a major part of my transformation as well, was doing a lot of Dr. Joe's work. You know, learning the science of it all, because I was very intellectual, right? So I was like, cool, this is the information, you know, I could use for myself. So say if there's anyone who's watching this now that's very intellectual, you know, like use intellectual stuff to like guide you into simplicity, you know, and like into this space, you know, just whatever your mind feels like it needs at the time, feed it, you know. But like you say, don't be attached to it as well, and to just use it to feed the mind new information, so it has, because, you know, with awareness, you know, it's like I've built all these signposts now within my mind that say when shit hits the fan, I have these signposts appear in my awareness now, and I can like use that. I get, because as soon as you've got awareness there, you've got responsibility, because you're
Hmm.
aware now, and then with responsibility comes, you know, you're accountable, and then you, with accountability, I can change shit, right? I can just shift stuff really quickly. So it was like, you know, a level of honesty with yourself and responsibility was like key for my own transformation. It was key for me finding my center. It was key for me refining the pattern of being in my center more so than not, you could say. Um, and that was like, when I'd become aware of it, that was the most important thing I needed to focus on, right? And this strengthened the pattern of that, you know, and, you know,
Hmm.
because there's some story in your reality is going to try to take you off your path at
Yep.
some point.
Yep.
So it was like creating all these internal signposts within myself. So me doing that was like, all right, cool, I can use the whole Ho'oponopono to discard all old information and data, and then I'm going to overload it with information and data that I could use as like signposts within my mind. So when shit hits the fan, or my feelings get triggered, I know how I've got signposts, I've got information that I can use to, you know, navigate through those issues or problems, and or move back into my center. And it was like it was just like the constant, like anything, you go to the gym, keep training it, and the muscle gets stronger. And it's the same with the mind, it's the same with the feelings and the body, it's the same with moving into your center. It's like the
Yeah, we're
same.
training our spiritual muscle.
Yeah, yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
Like in my ebook, you know, feeding your mental, physical, and spiritual muscles on the daily is like I do it every day. If I don't do it, I notice I get slammed with my reality
Mm.
very fast, and I'm
Yep.
tested very quick. Yeah, man. So we haven't had any one message.
Cool. I
We haven't
think,
had anyone message, but look, it's all cool. We might get people message after when people watch it through.
yeah, I do gotta hop off right now.
Sure.
I
All good,
feel
man.
we've covered a lot. And again, if you guys feel there's something we've missed, please let us know. But also if you feel excited to just go more in depth and explore other like more personal ways of how these topics are showing up in your life, feel free to reach out, to send me a DM. I suppose it goes for you, Ty, as well.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And then
Everyone at him. He's a brilliant coach. Brilliant coach.
we can explore that. I'd be
Yeah.
excited to. Anyway,
Awesome.
thank you, Ty. This was
Nah,
great. Had a lot of
awesome,
fun.
guys. Nah, all
Yeah.
good, man. Have a brilliant day, dude. And thanks for coming on anyway. And yeah, everyone send him some love. Go over like his page, or I'll get Harris. Just type it in the comments anyway, your page, and they can just click and
Oh,
head
sure.
over.
Cool.
Yeah, it'd be easier for that. And then yeah. All right, man. Well, cool. Love. Thanks for coming on, dude. I know it's 9:30 here. Was it 12:30? You probably got stuff to do, so keep
Yeah.
busy.
Have a great evening and
All right, brother.
much love to you all.
You too,
Bye.
brother. See you, my friend.
Bye bye.
See you,
See
man.
you.